All right, and we're back for episode 71 of Digital Divination. Happy Thanksgiving, Jason. I haven't seen you since a couple weeks.
That's true. They went by very fast, I feel.
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Did you do anything special? You mentioned what
Nothing.
you were going to do. Did you actually do that?
I think so. What did I did I remember what I said? I did run a one shot. Was that before? No, we're gonna play a one shot, a Thanksgiving themed one shot.
Oh,
Did
no,
I mention that?
no, that's not what you mentioned. So what'd you
What the
do?
heck did I mention? We played the Wednesday before, we played we were, like a what we do in the shadows style,
Mhm.
Thanksgiving themed one shot where we were vampires.
Oh, nice.
Weird
Yeah, no,
vampires, yeah.
I think that was different. You'd mentioned going in game. Oh, I forgot what it was. Animal Crossing in game, I think,
Oh,
and
yeah,
something
that's
like
for
that.
Halloween.
Oh, that was Halloween.
Yeah, that was for
Oh,
Halloween.
okay. Yeah, you
Yeah,
dress
dressed
up.
up in
That's right.
costumes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't say anything about Thanksgiving. All right.
No, okay. Phew, I thought I'd
Yeah.
forgotten something
No, no,
like
no.
I
Yeah,
talked
I'm.
about now.
Fall holidays all run together for me. So you
That's
know.
fair. That's fair.
Well,
W
good. That sounds pretty exciting. What system do you use for that?
there's actually this tiny indie game called Vampires Suck at Shopping. It
That sounds
it's
awesome.
pretty good. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
It's like pamphlet-sized game.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
really
yeah,
not very much going on, and we all
yeah.
play different weird vampires. This is actually like we played these characters, gosh, last year around Halloween
Mhm,
for the
mhm.
first time, and then we're just like, "Now, what's happened since then?" And you've accidentally agreed to host Thanksgiving potluck dinner at your weird house. What
Right, right,
happens?
right,
Yeah,
right.
that kinda stuff, yeah.
Wow, that is sounds like a lot of fun. That
It was
that
fun.
sounds great.
Yeah.
We had a more traditional thing. We had family
Mhm,
over, so both my kids are over, and also,
mhm.
Scott Keim is now we have this tradition where I invited him over, like, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and he's come
Okay.
every Thanksgiving since. So now it's like, well, it's 4 years in a
Sure.
row. I guess it's a tradition. We have to have him over. But his family is, back in Ohio, so he usually
Mm.
doesn't, get anywhere for Thanksgiving, and he lives pretty close to me, so we
That's good,
usually
that's
have
nice.
him over. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we kinda sit around, I watch football, and we go through multiple courses of dessert and
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
and that's about it. But, my daughter then, after Thanksgiving, so not Thanksgiving, Saturday, so yesterday, she
Mhm.
ran the Seattle Half Marathon.
Ooh.
So we went down to drop her off and cheer her on, and well, they start at 7 in the morning, so we had to get up at
Mm.
5:30 to get there by 6:30, and, it's not even light yet, and they're starting the race,
Yeah.
and but it didn't rain. If it rained, I wasn't gonna go. So
That's fair,
that
that's
was
fair.
it. But it was good. It was good. We had never she's done a couple of these in person and a whole bunch virtually during the
Mhm.
pandemic. We hadn't gone, so we thought we'd go, and that was
That's good.
kind of a neat thing, and now I'm just kinda recovering a bit, and,
Sure.
Monday, I gotta get back and start doing some work. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
tomorrow's more work. I've never run a marathon, but the closest I've come is, letting someone use my name, to sign up for the New York Marathon. But I had to go pick up the packet myself because I had to give them my ID and show them, "Yes,
Oh,
that's I'm Jason Keeley." It was, someone from Britain who couldn't run the marathon normally because I don't know if you could if you're not an
yeah.
American citizen. I'm not really sure exactly. I don't quite remember how it works, but, I was like, "Yeah, I don't care." Like, if they find out that they're gonna ban me
Yeah,
from running the marathon ever again, I don't what do
yeah,
I care
yeah.
about? So, yeah, he ran the marathon dressed as Elvis.
Nice. I think I know for Boston, I presume for New York, you have to have a certain time, and maybe if you're a local
Mm.
resident, they kind of get you in anyway. I don't maybe it's something like that.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
missed the deadline for signing up or something. It's
Oh,
but as a non-US citizen, so or
right,
something like that.
right.
Yeah.
Very kind. I ran one marathon, ooh, 30 years ago. Wow.
Mhm.
30 I was just a young pup then. And,
Yeah.
haven't run one since, though I got pretty excited, with my daughter running, and so she wants us my wife and I to run some 8K this summer and maybe work up to a half marathon or something. I don't know. Hard to
Sure.
say.
Yeah.
It's I'm to the age where it's harder to overcome when you pull muscles and
Yeah.
do those training things. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
harder to say. Harder to say.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
good.
if you do it, good luck.
Well, you'll
Don't hurt
know
yourself.
because I'm gonna miss like a
Sh
month because I won't be able to record. Right?
Yeah,
I'll be laid up. And
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'll have to do these all by myself.
yes, yes, no, no. All right. Well, so 2 weeks ago we had an episode where we discussed our top 5 favorite adventures. It was kind of
Mhm.
nice. One of our listeners posted their top 5 as well, and there was an overlap from ours of 3
Oh,
or
wow.
so between the 2 of ours. So I thought that was kind of cool. And today we're going to talk about our top 5 playable species. And I was kind of looking through the Starfinder interstellar species,
There
and
you
I
go.
notice it has a bunch of things in it that I guess basically species that were introduced but hadn't had a full write up like in other
Yeah.
books. It's kind of the my
Mhm.
takeaway from that. And I'm looking through there and I'm trying to think, man, how am I going to figure out what I consider the best? And so I had to get some criteria. And so for
Sure, sure.
me, I decided to pare it down
Mhm.
to the top 5 playable species that I actually have played in game for some time period, like an
Sure.
extended period. Oftentimes, I'm thinking actually all of these that I picked, I've played at least a year, and
Mm,
some of these I've played 4 years or more. So that's
wow.
kind of that's my criteria. I'll leave it at that. Did you have any criteria for yours? I'm kind of
I
curious.
picked a little bit, yeah, it was, just playable species that I liked and that I thought maybe had some interesting stories to tell, or,
Okay.
yeah, that I have interesting stories to tell about
Yeah.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
the intersection of the 2 of those things.
Nice. Like that.
Yeah.
All right. I think you started last time. I can go ahead
Yes.
and start.
Why don't you start?
All right. So, my number 5, and I have visuals again. Unfortunately, we don't
Ooh.
have them for online, and my printer doesn't make them as pretty as I'd like, but we'll see.
Mm.
So, my number 5 is an SRO. SRO, and this is a kind of artwork I pulled off online. I don't know who it's attributed to, but this is IG-11 from The Mandalorian. If for those
Sure,
who
yeah.
aren't familiar. And so, one of my more recent characters is an SRO. I got a special boon to play it well before they were released, where you can get achievement points to get them. In fact, I don't even know if you can get them via achievement points. But anyway, I got this one earlier from something else. And the reason why I like why this is my number 5 one is the role playing that I can do with it. And
Mhm.
so my SRO is IG-17, so not IG-11. It's actually my 17th Starfinder character, so it's IG-17.
Okay,
And
yeah.
IG-17 is a former bounty hunter, similar to this, who's now a mystic. In particular,
Hmm.
they're a medical expert, and also they have training as a clinical psychologist. And so their big thing is to help people um, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And when I play this, and I was thinking it was going to drive people crazy. So I play this in society play, and I use a robotic voice the entire time. So
Sure.
just kind of a flat robotic
Yeah.
voice, and so it's a lot of fun. And then I always get to throw in the Freudian phrase. Would you like to talk about your father? Type of thing when something's going on, or try to get into that. So that's my number 5. It's again ones I play, and this is one of my more recent ones. I like it a lot.
Sure, yeah. It's a great juxtaposition always when you have a robot who is trying to do like, the meat space stuff, when you
Yes,
kinda mix it
yes,
all up,
exactly.
the psychological, the physical, and the spiritual,
Yeah,
like, in a way, a robot has no frame of reference for those things in a lot of ways,
exactly. Yeah.
and, yeah. And you, I mean, yeah, some restraint on your part. I would have called him IG711 probably or something like that. Just did a little,
Yeah,
but you had a reference. It was a reference to
yeah,
something that he could see was your 17th character. That makes
yes,
sense at least, not just
yeah.
some. Um, okay, my fifth choice is probably not going to be very controversial. It's and pretty basic. Yusoki.
Mhm.
You know, I for the most part, I did think a lot about what playable species exist that maybe don't actually also exist in Pathfinder.
Okay.
But Yusoki, Ratfolk, I just love them in general, no matter what kind of system you've got going on here. And our Starfinders Yusoki have the cheek pouches and
Mhm.
some other great abilities, just I don't know, I just love them. And I did write the backstory for Quig, the iconic mechanic who is Yusoki with a little robot, and so I guess in a way that's my Yusoki character.
Nice. Wow,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything that good. So
Uh, you've got your
alright,
four, 5 characters you've played for more than a year. That's enough.
alright. Well, my next character is the or playable species is the witch
Mm,
weird, which
mm-hmm.
is a four-armed humanoid creature. Um, looks similar to and hangs out with Kasatha quite a bit. And this artwork is actually from Jacob Blackman. It's on
Ooh, yeah,
his DeviantArt page. He did not create this specifically for me, but I really like this art quite a bit, so I
sure.
like to use it as kind of my witch weird when I'm
Mhm.
showing it and doing things like that. What I really and this witch weird was like one of my early characters early on. It was you could get a boon from playing something, and so it was one of my first extra boons that I could play of
Yeah.
a non-standard species. So I say, hey, I'll go and do this. One of the neat things about the witch weirds is that um, they have the ability to absorb force, so they
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
catch magic missiles or force bolts,
Yeah.
and then they can throw them back. And
Yep.
in my particular witch weird, it's interesting. My SRO was a mystic, so one of my latest characters, and this was also a mystic, one of my earlier mystics, and this one happens to be a star shaman, which can
Mm.
also throw
So,
magic missiles, but they call them something else.
shooting
Shooting
stars.
stars. They call them shooting
Yeah.
stars. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And the neat thing about them is that they get a boost to charisma and intelligence. So
Mm.
they're good at haggling and things like that. And so that's kind of what my Witch Weirds game is all about. So that's my number 4.
Pretty cool. I don't know if it'll happen, but we've always had it in the back of, on a page somewhere that trying to really establish the connection between Witch Weirds, Satha, and Shobad on
Hmm.
Akaton because they all got forearms, and there was going to
Right.
be, I think,
Right.
the idea is listed under something called the Four Armed League, which I think is vaguely a Sherlock Holmes reference.
Oh,
But
yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, the Redheaded League. And some there's probably some fodder for adventure and history and backstory for there, but we shall see if that ever gets picked up by anybody. Um, my fourth one is just this one is just another strange one. It's the Selamids. Um, that's from Starfinder number 5.
Okay.
Early days, and this is sort of when that issue has a lot of extra playable species in it, sort of a deluge of them, weird planets and stuff like that. But these guys are oozes. They're playable oozes. They're playable,
Hmm.
basically giant protozoas, essentially.
Right.
And it's just sort of another one of those things that I think they look neat. And would probably want to play one at one point because that's the kind of character that I would play. And I don't know if I'm gonna double check this what they do. They do have the ability to kind of like they're not in there, but it's like I was you could picture yourself just storing stuff inside of you, sort of like I'm gonna put this gun and snoop it in there and pull it out when time is ready. That's two in a
Right.
row about weird storage species, but I promise that's not a theme. That's just a
Right.
coincidence.
Yes. All right. Okay. So we're up to number 3.
Mhm,
Number 3 is kind of sentimental for me because it's my first character. It's when I started playing Dead Sons with, and
mhm,
I think it's kind of boring to some extent, but they've there's some alternative racial features that they have with them. I actually
mhm.
think they're making them pretty cool. But it's the android. So this is a
Oh,
picture of
yeah.
ISIF, the uh, iconic android for Starfinder. And so
Mhm.
my very first character that I was playing with, Bishop 2K7 is its name.
Yeah, I remember this name, yeah.
Yes, yes. And so there, I explained earlier what kind of the reference was to it. And I kind of like, the android as an operative. It just seems so much, kind of built in to do
Mhm.
well with that, with a, +2 to dexterity, +2 to intelligence. You know, you get a minus on your charisma because of flat affect. Who really cares, right? Um, Now, the kind of interesting thing though, there's an alternative racial trait that you can get called a nanite integration that you can
Mhm.
take in place of the extra slot, you call that.
The
It's
armor
got a
upgrade
built-in
slot, yeah.
armor upgrade slot that comes built in. And the neat thing about that is there's 3 different types. So the one I like is the rebooting nanites, which allows you, like, if you get some condition, you can spend a
Mhm.
resolve to basically re-roll to remove it. Um, so I think that makes it pretty cool. Now, in addition, one of the things that came out, which I think is really cool, is the xenometric android.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
right. So basically, rather than having a humanoid form like ISIF, you can take on all kinds of different things. And I
Yeah.
haven't done this yet, but I've seen it in play, and I'm thinking, wow, I'd like to combine this with some of my other favorite things. You
Sure,
lose
yeah.
something from the base class, but then you kind of gain some of the android features. So I think that kind of makes for a really cool mix. So that's my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that was in character operation pretty early-ish
Yeah.
on, and that, that makes the most sense. We have these androids, they don't have to all be humanoid
Right.
in a galaxy that has all these other shapes of species, right?
Hmm.
Just makes sense, it just makes sense. Um, my number 3 is the Cephaloom. And
Cephaloom.
the
All right.
Cephaloom, I know, right? The Cephaloom is kind of a fish, like, I don't know, like a seahorse underwater. It's
Yeah, I was
definitely
gonna say it's like a
underwater,
seahorse, yeah.
like a seahorse, but not a horse face. It's just kind of got like a
Right.
squid face, kind of like a cross between a seahorse and a squid a little bit. I They live, they live in this weird, not quite ocean. It's more like a liquid helium
Mhm.
planet, right? And they get cool the abilities to sort of like bond these not quite coral, but like symbiotes to them that
Right.
let them maybe give them an extra limb essentially, or do other things. The Cephaloom species trait sidebar is probably one of the longer ones,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of choices that you can make there. But I picked this because of its basically it's the origin story of what the Cephalums are. The Cephalums were created at a PaizoCon panel when
Oh,
we
really? I did not
went
know
to
that.
design. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it was last time we talked. I was trying to remember the name of a Starfinder artist, who
Mhm.
was the
Right.
guest of honor one time. Their name's Taylor Fisher. I remembered it now. Yeah, I remembered it between now and then. But Taylor was also at this. It was this same con. Taylor was at this con, and basically, sort of, let's design an alien. It was basically what it was, and she was drawing it at the same time. And so it was just sort of like, what is it? What can it be? And everyone sort of like threw this stuff at it. And we eventually came down to like these, fishy squid people who have this bioluminescent skin, and that's how they communicate with each other. And I think that's where we picked up the what they're called, crickets. They're called crickets, the sort of symbiotes that you get to add on.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then eventually we turned it over to a name, and you can imagine that, Cepha from cephalopod and loom
Right.
from sort of illumination. The person who came up with that name was Jessica Redicop,
Mhm.
who since then has sort of become a bit bigger freelancer. And we gave actually this entry for her to write later on.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And she's the one who sort of basically fleshed out all this other stuff. And at that point, like I didn't know Jessica that well. I think I had maybe played in one PaizoCon game with her that I was running, and she was a delight. And so when she was, you know, just came up with the name, that's a great name, and I saw who it was. I was like, "Oh, great!" And then I was chatting. I think I was chatting with Joe at the time, who was also there. And like, well, we should, we need someone. We want to. We do to say it's not going to be guaranteed this is going to be anywhere, but let's write it up. We're probably going to write it up. And I was like, oh, I think I know who that is. And this may have. I don't know if this was Jessica Redicop's like first assignment ever, but it was pretty early on, I think, in her, at least her Paizo freelance
Mhm.
career. So that's
Mhm.
why I like
Mhm.
them. I think they just like the idea that they were sort of created by the community, and
Yeah.
hopefully, I don't know if people enjoy playing them or not, but I think that would be pretty cool.
I've never seen one in game. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's been a playable race or a playable species. Is it in Interstellar Species?
It was first introduced in Alien Archive 3, Cephaloons.
Right, right,
I don't know if
and
they
so
made it into Interstellar
yeah,
Species. No, I think they did. Think they
uh-huh,
did because I remember because they have the longest racial species
yeah,
trait
yeah.
sidebar.
It is,
So
yeah, page
yeah,
56.
there you go. Yeah, so there's more about them there. Check them out.
Yeah. Well, I was actually gonna see if they had a bigger picture here to show. Oh, wow, this is kinda wild. So that's the picture there,
Yeah,
the
that's a weird.
cephalon.
That's a kind of a weirder picture than they are in
Yeah, there's
the Alien Archive 3 ones are a little better looking, I think.
yeah, let me see if there's another one. Yeah, on, Archives of Nethys, there's a oh, this is another interesting one. Is that it? Yeah, that's gonna be another one. Yeah, so this is another picture of it right there.
Mm.
So,
Cool. Yeah,
pretty wild. Alright. Yeah, we definitely have a different, approach here. Yours are, like, really weird ones, and
I like weird stuff.
I know, it kinda fits in. Alright,
Yeah.
so my number 2, again, this is one that's I've played, and I've actually played this one through a bunch of the Dawn of Flame Adventure Path, our actual play. I GM'd for the books, and then Ron Lundeen GM'd a
Right.
book, and then Jake Tondro GM'd a book. And so when I was playing, I had to roll a character, and Ron was playing Scooch, who was a Yosoki operative. And so I basically rolled an operative when I replaced him. And I kind of based this on kind of a cross between Daredevil and Deadpool. And so this is Murdoch's. This is art from Jacob Blackman. Murdoch's
Hmm.
is my tiefling operative. And again, similar to, when you're looking at uh, the android, the tiefling, plus to dex, plus to intelligence. They get a bonus to bluff and stealth. They get some resistance to fire, cold, and electricity. It's got all kinds of stuff, and then that fiendish gloom, which I've
Mm.
used a couple times in play, especially in when I was doing the Dawn of Flame book that Ron was running. Really helped quite a bit. Now I know that in Pathfinder One, Pathfinder First Edition, tieflings were used a lot and were way OP, and I think when they were
Sure.
introduced in Starfinder, I think they were dialed back a little bit, but they were still pretty strong. I mean, they still have quite a bit of stuff in them. In addition, subsequent to that, there's uh, alternative racial traits that are actually really pretty good that you can
Mhm.
substitute for Fiendish Gloom and a couple things. But yeah, so Murdoch's, I enjoy Murdoch's quite a bit. Um, you know, that's why I picked him.
Yeah.
It's not nothing really weird about it, but that's
Fair enough.
that's my number 2.
I think you'll want to look forward to I can't remember if it's the first or second um volume. I think it's the second volume of no, it's the first volume. It's the first volume of Drift Hackers.
Okay. Okay.
Uh has a sort of a nice article that is about planar scions like the
Yeah.
tiefling and the Asmar and the 4 or 5 geniekin that were introduced
All right, right,
throughout
right.
Dawn of Flame,
Yeah.
and then in that actual volume, we bring the Gonzi up to Starfinder, but then there's also a
Nice.
bunch of those alternate traits
Hmm.
for all these planar scions sort of mixed together, so it's even more, for your people who love your tieflings and your Aasimars because, hey, everyone loves a little planar blood in their,
Yeah. Yeah.
ancestry and backstory. Like, moving on to my number 2, is another weird one, of course. It is the, Vildararo. Vildararo were also introduced so pretty early-ish on. This is volume 8 of the Starfinder Adventure Path, Escape from the Prison Moon, where we
Hmm.
talked a lot about all these Aslanti species. Now,
Right,
in the
right,
core
right.
rulebook, I think we threw out some sort of undescriptive hooks. Just sort of like if some people are, the Aslanti sort of have conquered a number of other species such as X, Y, and Z, and one of them is sort of this. There was some trilateral something described as having like trilateral symmetry,
Hmm.
and what we got with the Vildraro is essentially these guys are walking sea anemones. Um, for whatever reason, the one piece of art we got for them in for Starfinder number 8 was just so good. If you look up maybe if you do a little Google search on image search on Vildararo, yeah, that first one. It's just this pink troll doll hair, CNMA hair poking up. You got the 3 eyes sort of spaced semi-equally, and then 3 feet. But then just wearing this, I don't know, kind of just like a little tunic or something. That just like that to me is what Starfinder's kind of all about.
Hmm.
Playing something that looks like that, and just being, "I'm
Oh
just a
yeah,
Vildararo,
that's so funny.
walking around." Yeah. We, eventually in the volume 9 of the next volume of the Adventure Path, there's a Vildararo NPC, and I decided, when I was, developing that, Vildararos have, names that are like Murloc names from World of Warcraft.
Oh.
So, just like the one in volume 9 is called Murglewr. Just because I thought it was funny and that because they're kind of, they're sea creatures, so they kind of sound like they're underwater all the time.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
All right. So my number one, and I haven't been playing this one as long. I have a society character, and I'm actually playing this in the Devastation arc. Actual play is
Mm.
the Dragonkin, and
Ooh,
so
yeah.
my Dragonkin um, is called Leroy, and he is a Vanguard, which you get a Vanguard that size is very, very powerful. And this is, again,
Mm.
this is art similar to my Tiefling. This is art made by Jacob Blackman specifically for our Actual Play podcast. Um, I like being big and having reach
Yeah.
and being able to fly. I noticed looking through Interstellar Species, they have some alternative feats you can get as a dragonkin, and one of them is called Hurl Ally, which I
Oh,
thought
yeah,
was
we had to
really
get that in
really
there.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we do that already, and
There you
I have
go.
a bonded partner who's a halfling, and so it's like wow, that's really easy to kind of one hand it. Um, yeah, so yeah, the biggest issue I run into this large creature is getting through 5 foot wide doors and hallways and
Yep.
things.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in the character operations manual, there's a new feat called Tight Fit,
Mm.
and that's one that I definitely for large size
Understood.
yeah creatures I have to get that just to make it more palatable rather than being entangled the whole time and not be able to do anything. So yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
Leroy, my Dragonkin Vanguard, is my number one.
And I mean, that's the other thing about Starfinder that I think is so great is to now take the fantasy aspects
Mhm.
of the science fantasy stuff, and I think we knew we wanted to have like playable dragon people early on because it's I mean, it's not new to role playing games at all. But we also knew that was they're generally pretty popular. People want to do that kind of stuff. Become a either like do a thing where you slowly become a dragon, or play a kobold and pretend you were a
Right.
dragon,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or just I was like, well, let's have dragon kin. Let's have some bipedal dragon people in there. We had to make them big too because why not? Why not make them big? All right, my number one is probably not going to come as much of a surprise to maybe
I
listeners
know what
out
it
there.
is already.
Do you know what it is? It's the
Yeah.
Skittermander. Skittermander. Did you know it?
No, actually, I was gonna say
Oh,
the
what
the
were you gonna
Gil
guess?
Brownie, but
Oh, yeah, the bug people. I decided for this one, I feel like I picked a lot of stuff that I wrote last time for
oh,
adventures
okay.
or
Yeah.
write
Yeah.
down. This is stuff that I've got personal connections to all of these things, but I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
actually write any of the write-ups. Yeah, none of those write-ups.
Yeah.
But it's Skittermander because I mean I've written so many Skittermander adventures now
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
feel like I know a lot about Skittermanders, and tell you the genesis of Skittermanders because that's another interesting story about
Yeah.
Starfinder facts stuff. Um, Skittermanders were originally written by Crystal Fraser, but they were sort of intended to be kind of like the more or less animal companions. They were
Mm.
going to be
Mhm.
more animalistic, more basically, right? Still had this sort of like weird, uh, 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 um, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a larval stage where they would eat just about everything, and they were little tiny guys, little tongues coming out
Right.
of their
Yeah. Yeah.
bellies and stuff like that. But at some point, we got was it Remco Troost who did a lot, most of the stuff, the covers for Starfinder early on. Kind of said, "Oh, draw Dragonkin." There's your Dragonkin on there. Draw the another thing, and then like just draw something, two things that we knew what they were, and then a third thing that he got to make up, basically. So he drew the sort of original concept of the Skittermanders, which appear on the cover of the first Alien Archive, and then James Sutter decided that that would be he's like, oh, that's a great name for what those are. Let's make those things, these little guys with a bunch of arms and they're different colors. And so we had to tweak the what they were in the development process. And um, I feel like I was instrumental in sort of steering them towards what they kind of are today. And so they kind of got away from me, I think, a little bit there. More so, I didn't realize they would be that sort of, as popular as they are. But I just like, it was sort of like, well, we got to come up with something that's maybe a little iconic. And it was like, well,
Yeah.
it could be, these guys could be ghoulies, essentially. They could be like more goblins and be
Right.
chaos driven people. But I was like, I don't want to get into that again because we already have space. We have space goblins. Let's do something different.
Right.
And so we sort of like, what if they were just helpful? What if they were just like Amelia Bedelia's
Yeah.
to the nth degree, to the point where they don't even realize that they've been conquered, or they don't care, or they just don't have a centralized government or any kind of respect real for authority in a way that seems so that would be just frustrating the people who are like all authority. And so from there we sort of made them they vary whether or not how annoying they are depending on who's playing them, I guess. And
Mhm.
they're not quite, I don't want to put them in the same category as like Kender, which are also can be annoying to play, but like
Right.
they kind of have that they have a little bit of that people who want to be the mischievous character in that vein. And then writing the first free RPG day adventure where you play the Skittermanders and coming up with
Mhm.
a lot of like what do Skittermanders like, and
Right.
having all this. I think we've talked about this a little bit. Having the meeting about like, well, how do they talk and what do they, do they have sports? Do they have sayings? Do they have slang
Mhm.
words? And really coming up with that stuff. So I have been sort of have them. They're near and dear to my heart. Those Skittermanders.
It's funny. I also put down some honorable mentions,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them, again, a Skidamander I played,
Yeah.
um, is my honorable mention here. So I have a
There you go.
Skidamander envoy named Sam Jacks, and unlike your typical envoy or Skittermander, he helps by yelling at you and to get stuff done.
In a
But
real Arlie Ermery kind of way.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he's kind of not the typical
that's
Skittermander
great. Yeah.
in that form. But yeah, so that was kind of my honorable mention on that. Do you have an honorable mention?
I would, yeah, well, let's say my honorable mentions are all of the guys that I created.
Okay.
Your Bantrids, your
Yeah.
Gibrani, the weird I made up this name and I can barely pronounce it myself. Cyanoid, Cyanoid. Those came from the fact that like sometimes when you cut a red pepper down the middle, it kind of looks like a face. That
Yeah.
was the prompt, the visual prompt for how what those were. We actually have a drawing of one of the pepper heads
Yeah.
on my fridge. So
Wow.
yeah, those are weirdos. There's another sort of like these little dwarf guys called Pharaons were like early on that no
Oh
one
yeah, yeah,
remembers,
yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's little like squished down because of black hole
Right,
gravity,
right. They're
and I had
small
one
and
guy.
gray and
Yeah,
tight. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're almost dwarves, but they're one guy smoking a cigar,
Yeah.
but yeah, all those guys.
Nice. That's what's one of the really cool things about Starfinder is that although there's a lot of humanoid
Hmm.
things. Um, a lot of the NPCs and now playable species you run into are, you mentioned the Bantrids. We're going through Devastation Arc, and it's kind of
Yeah.
talks about the history of the Bantrids, where they came from, and it's just this nose rolling around. It's just
Yep.
it's like so many. There's so many. We don't think about it, that, oh, something can function without hands and a face and things like that. But in space, yeah, when they're in a completely
Yeah. Yeah.
different context, and they can be anything.
Yeah.
So many times when you see, even looking through like Star Wars, watching Andor, so I
Hmm.
finally finished it.
Me too.
So many of the things there are humanoid still. There's
Yeah.
just very humanoid with some big change to it. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice.
The Bantrids were almost weirder than that even, but I got sort of, said to take it back a notch. They were just gonna be like, literally just wagon wheel,
Oh,
essentially.
really? Wow.
Yeah, that rolled
Instead of
around.
having to roll on their wheel all the time.
Rolling away, yeah, they were just
Yeah.
wagon wheels. I don't know how that would have worked with the physics, but,
Yeah.
can you just push them over real easy and then they're stuck? I don't know. So maybe that's why I was told to bring
Yeah.
it back down a notch. Yeah. The Star Wars the old Star Trek joke of, you're just a human with a little bump on the ridge of your nose. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that makes it's understandable when you're making a thing in the real world, right? When you've got to
Right.
have actual people put this makeup on and stuff like that, and it's easier to have them be completely bipedal and two arms, two legs, right? But when you're in a completely imagination based space like Starfinder, oh nuts! We get to go nuts.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, I guess, how do they deal with armor and weapons and things, so just kinda
Yeah,
wrapping your head
that
around that.
they got hand wave that stuff a little bit, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I think that's just that's why if you're worrying about that, you're thinking too hard.
Yeah, yeah. So this has been fun, and again, there's 0 overlap
Yeah, amazing.
between our top 5. It's,
Yeah,
because I think we have a lot different criteria, which I think brings it from,
sure.
yours is, like, from a design perspective, mine's from having played them perspective, and I tried to pick things that were not, like, just kinda really, really basic, but I'll have to say that probably all the things I picked are fairly common, that players are picking for a variety of reasons, so,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, there's also like all the stuff I picked is weird and often have like maybe weird stat bonuses and just
Yeah.
not as optimized or what have you. And that's fine because sometimes you're gonna have those characters out there that are just weird. Oh god, there's so many now. I've just thought of like four others that are also weird and could have picked.
Well, one of the things I'll say is for any of our listeners, if they have a favorite that they playable species, just kinda post up.
Yeah.
Somebody posted on Facebook, you can also post on our, YouTube channel when the video gets posted, or you can post on, the discussion on the No Direction, Discord as well. Yeah, I'm kinda curious, other things that other playable species people like to play and kind of why,
Yeah.
kind of, I don't see like, I don't see a lot of way out in the games I run. And I'm kind of curious if there are some people that all they do is play like what's the most way out,
Sure. Yeah.
thing that they can. Um, for next time, what do you want to? Let's do another top five. But what do you want to do?
Let's do
Top
another top
five
five.
of
What do you think? Some other game elements. We could do spells.
spells.
Top five
Spells.
spells. Everyone loves
Um,
magic.
I know you talked about spells. I think one of our listeners mentioned picking feats.
Mm,
Um, and I think if we do it, either one of those spells or feats, that they shouldn't be kind of standard every day. Oh, everybody has to have this. So,
sure. Yeah.
for an example, I think like mobility is like super important for a lot of things.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that's pretty basic. But I think there's a lot of other ones that are way out there. Similarly,
Yeah.
for certain spells like magic missiles, like seems like everybody might take that if they can, kind of thing.
Hmm.
All right, well, let's think about those two, and we'll surprise people. We'll have one of those two topics
Yeah.
next time.
Well, tune in, find out.
Well, I'm John.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.